Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our review of the Champions League semi-final first legs. Arsenal tried their best to get into their groove, but PSG put in a performance that you could hang in the Louvre. As for Barcelona, what can we say? We love the way that Lamine Yamal and his friends play. Inter was solid and Barca will be fine if you can win a major trophy with that kind of crazy high line. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, it's your friend, it's my friend, the Taylor Rockwell. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, Ryan Bailey. The Champions League is the best. The European Champions League, I should stress, is so much fun. These games are so great in very different ways. And I managed to stay spoiler-free to watch Barcelona-Inter at 9 p.m. last night and was into it the whole way. It was great.
Wow. How do you shut yourself out and watch a game on delay like that? How is it possible to do that?
Remember how you were confused how I had so many unread text messages? That's the answer. That's how I do it. Yes.
That explains the no response to our Slack messages last night.
Correct.
Taylor, how good is this game, Taylor? Are you enjoying yourself, Taylor?
And then I did respond to Slack. Like I responded to all the messages around 12:30 at night, only to find out that Slack was down and none of them went through. So if you all get random messages coming through in the middle of this recording, that's why.
Or through the middle of the night. I count on them from you, quite frankly, Taylor.
Very good.
It's a routine for me.
That is the voice of Graham Ruthven. You hear, Graham, how are you? Have you been out there touching grass as well, as like Taylor?
Yes, I mean, no more than... There seems to be a lot of lawn care happening in our estate at the moment. Taylor and I spoke about this on the one-on-one episode we did this week, which was all about pitches. I don't know whether that was a really coherent, synergetic segue there, Ryan, or just,
That's what I meant,
about grass. Yeah, that's what he meant. It was all planned. But yeah, I'm one of the few people who just lets it
Graham.
grow.
Graham, tell him about your neighbor. Tell him about your neighbor. People need to know.
He is doing a lot of work to his lawn, and I'm doing nothing, and mine looks better.
He astroturfed the whole thing.
Oh, that you're talking about?
Yeah. That one. That one I can't get over.
Yeah, he is astroturfed the whole lot. Looks terrible. Hope he doesn't listen to this show.
Wow. I got so fed up with my yard once that I got a quote for turfing the whole thing. I decided not to. Kind of wish I had. I'm with your neighbour. Joe Lowry's here. Hi, Joe.
Hey guys, I am team turf in moderation. Oof. Doing the entire lawn in the nation of Scotland feels like just a slap in the face to your entire people group. Just as Taylor Rockwell absolutely smacked the Vancouver Whitecaps in the face with his clarification about how only the European Champions League is any fun. That's how you make an enemy of an entire Canadian city.
He's a big fan of the Champions Cup, though.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Was that not clear? Yeah, that's clearly what I meant.
Yeah,
that I didn't watch that
jump.
game and have nothing to add to it, so didn't want to then tease that we were talking about all of the Champions League.
Just decided to absolutely knock out the city of Vancouver along the way. Well played.
Hey, they had it coming. They could have been American.
They know what they did.
War of 1812. They chose where to be.
Hey, well, things might change on that front in the next few months, Taylor. You never know. You never know how things are going. But patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is where you can head, dear listener, if you'd like to support this here endeavour. Bonus episodes, bonus video, and access to our Discord server. Best way to support us, please, and thank you. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. Taylor, I'd like to pick up on something you mentioned a few minutes ago about these semi-finals being very fun. Semi-finals of the Champions League always seem to be awesome, always seem to have lots of goals from what I can remember with my poor memory. Yet, the latter stages of certain tournaments, certainly finals of certain tournaments, usually quite tense. Why is it that we get this explosion of fun in the Final Four stage, do we think?
I really don't know. It's a really good question. Other than that, I think some of the teams remaining in this competition don't really have the ability to defend deep and bunker and park the bus, so I think it leads to, well, then we're going to ratchet it up to 11 the way we want to play. And I think when you have two teams that want to press and pass and attack and counterattack, I think it leads to some interesting play. But I also think it gets feistier. And I think that was a feature of both of these games. And so when you have highly technical teams that are very capable on the ball and generally capable off of it, but then also you get some snippiness and a little... maybe some intentional fouling here, an intentional kick out here. I think it creates even greater tension. It gets the crowd into it, and I think it ratchets up that animosity just a bit.
Joe, you're nodding along sagely with that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think Taylor's spot on with how with Barcelona and PSG in this Final Four against two other good teams that aren't just going to sit deep in bunker for 90 minutes, although Inter kind of got close for long stretches of the game yesterday.
Joe, here's my tactical diagram of Inter's approach.
My computer screen is genuinely dirty enough that I can't make any of that out, but it looks cool.
There's the Barca one.
Oh, there's
the Inter one, because
they
had
can't see those dots
plan.
at all.
Yeah.
That's a tough one on my part. Yeah, I mean, I think with Barca in PSG, it was going to be hard for these games to be boring. I also think the two-legged nature of the semifinals compared to the standalone final is a big contrast, where teams are willing to take a few risks to get on the board in the semis, where if you're in the final with a sort of one-take wonder situation, it's not the same. Even the teams that tend to be more expansive in a final, or tend to be more expansive leading up to a final, I should say, I think dial that back a little bit in the actual championship game itself.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if getting rid of the away goals rule as well, particularly with relation to the Barcelona and Inter game, like the fact that Inter, and they do bunker for quite a bit of that game, but they're still, particularly in the last 20 minutes, I thought they were actually pretty good and were coming out and creating opportunities. So would they have done that if the away goals rule had still been in place and they're at 2-2 or whatever? They know that that like a 1-1 in the second leg would be enough. I don't know. I think that change has probably helped in that regard as well.
Yeah, that was something that Thierry Henry on the CBS coverage was talking about. He was lamenting the fact that Inter can score 3 away goals and not have some kind of advantage from this game. I was thinking, well, you could just score more goals than the other team to get the advantage if that's...
Well, the advantage is they now have the second leg at home and they're not losing.
Right.
So
there's that. There is that indeed. Well, let's get into that game, shall we? From Barcelona, 3-3 with Barca and Inter in this one. What a game of soccer this was. Barcelona twice coming from behind here. Inter went 2-0 up with 2 brilliant goals from Marcus Thuram, that little back heel flick, and Denzel Dumfries getting all acrobatic. Lamine Yamal, an absolute sensation in this one, seemed to run the show for large periods, scored a worldie, nearly scored several more as well. Graham, going into this game, I was of the assumption that Inter would get lightly pummeled coming back into this one on the back of 3 straight defeats. But they went up in this one. I was very surprised and pleased with how much of a contest this game was.
They were sandbagging us. And Barcelona, the 3 games that they lost before this match was just to lure them into a false sense of security. And as soon as that goal goes in from Marcus Thuram in the opening, what is it, like 2 or 3 minutes? It's 30 seconds. It's the fastest.
First minute.
The PSG one was like quite early as well, right? I'm getting them confused. But after 30 seconds, Inter are ahead in this game. And you just knew that this was going to be chaos. You could sense it. And even when Inter go 2-0 up, I think I put something in our Slack chat of like, Barcelona need not worry. They'll score 4 goals in 7 minutes in the second half. And like, I was joking, but I also wasn't, because that's what this Barcelona team do. And that's where the difference for Barcelona is. There is no other team in European soccer. I can't really recall a team in European soccer, even going back to like the Pep Barcelona team and Lucho's Barcelona team, which for me is the most exhilarating and exciting team that I've ever watched. I can't recall a team that just knows, no matter what the situation is, they can get themselves out of a hole. They can score 3 goals in a game. They can score four goals in a game. And that made this match so exciting, so exhilarating to watch, where there have been games that I've watched this season with more goals, maybe even more incidents, but this match was gripping from start to finish, because it felt like if I took my eyes off this match for any period of time, I was going to miss something. And it was just pure entertainment. I absolutely loved it.
Graham, would you not put Real Madrid on that list? Like recent Real Madrid teams where you, like, I think mathematically and legally cannot count them out?
They're on that plinth, but honestly, I think this Barcelona team are at another level. And like the way that Barcelona are scoring goals as well. I think Andy Brassel made this point on social media last night, and he's more of a basketball fan than I am, but he compared the way that Barcelona score from long range to like how Steph Curry changed basketball. And so Inter in this game, there are moments where, and they get pulled apart for the space to be created, but particularly for the Rafinha goal, like against most teams, that situation is fine. You've got an entire back line of players in front of Rafinha, but Barcelona have got these players who can score from basically anywhere. Lamine Yamal is just a joke at this point. Like, I actually don't know what else there is to say about him as a 17-year-old. The fact that he can score all these different kinds of goals. Yeah. There's one moment in the second half where he flips it onto the crossbar.
Yep.
What was that? Like, I've never seen an attempt on goal like that in my life.
And it absolutely looked like a Schross, like he was maybe crossing, maybe shooting, maybe trying to lob, or maybe trying to put in like a lob cross to the back post. And you watch it again, like, no, he's aiming for that.
Yeah,
and it almost drops in. It is wild.
I think Thierry Henry asked him about that he had him on the CBS broadcast. It was actually a pretty good interview, and he was like, "Yeah, I was having a shot. That was
No
me
big deal.
attempting to shoot."
No big deal.
He's a
I
joke.
believe him. I want to say, before we get into like Lamine Yamal, which I think we'll all spend some time discussing,
Yes,
I just want to say I was different than Ryan. I thought Barcelona might struggle because they played 120 minutes of high-intensity soccer against Real Madrid at the weekend, and they didn't have Robert Lewandowski. I thought they might struggle. They might be just a little bit more cautious. They might be a little bit more conservative. And so when Inter come out and score and then score again, I thought, yeah, see, this is them being leggy, not really being up for it. And I kind of thought it was done. And so the way they immediately responded and fought back and kept fighting and took control of the game, and to your point, Graham, never looked like scared, never looked like, oh no, we're beaten here. Just looked like, yeah, we got this. Lamine Yamal dances through the whole team and scores off the post, and then it just felt like it was game on from that point. And it is a massive credit to Barcelona that they put in the effort they did, given what they did this past weekend.
Yeah, it's incredible. Joe, should we talk a bit more about Lamine Yamal, because I feel like we can't park it with him there yet. At 17 years old, we've made this point before on the feed that it feels like he's doing things even at this stage that Messi wasn't quite doing when he was a 17-year-old lad breaking into this team as well. It feels like his runway is huge here, and we got to take him pretty seriously of like the talent he's got.
And you took it where I was going to take it. Like, it is, I do not think it is hyperbolic to say that what Lamine Yamal is doing is reminiscent of what Lionel Messi was doing when he was first breaking in with Barcelona. It happens that Lamine Yamal's rise is happening a little faster, right, when it comes to actual goal contributions and meaningful minutes for Barcelona at his age. This game against Inter was Lamine Yamal's 100th appearance for Barcelona. He is still just 17 years old. His rise is happening so insanely early, to the point where we were talking about this before we started recording, when he's asked on that CBS broadcast if he knows who Jamie Carragher and Micah Richards are, he says, yeah, I know them from TikTok. Like, that's how old Lamine Yamal is. Just to really crystallize that
He's
for our
still at
listeners.
school, right? He's still having school lessons, I think.
Yeah,
until this summer.
wink, 100%. Yeah, it is crazy what he's doing. I don't want to say he's going to become Lionel Messi, because I was scrolling through the Lionel Messi FBref page yesterday and actually laughed out loud to myself in my house like a crazy person when I scrolled down to that 50-goal season that Messi had in La Liga. What Messi has done is insane, and I'm not sure his greatness will be passed or surpassed in my lifetime. Lamine Yamal's got a chance to do it, guys. With the way that he plays on that right side, he ran the show for Barcelona in this game. He ran the show in a Champions League semifinal against a very good Inter Milan team. 40% of Barcelona's attacks came down the right vertical third of the field. 30% came down the middle, 30% came down the left. Who was on the right side for Barcelona in this game? Lamine Yamal. He was running the show for Barcelona. To a level in the first half especially, that was, I thought, maybe even like a little bit detrimental to Barcelona, where they really struggled to find those switches over to Rafinha on the left side. And Inter, back in that super deep 5-3-2 block, had Lautaro Martinez and Marcus Thuram just split the field in half. And they were like positioning their bodies such that those switches were going to have to come in the air. And so they couldn't play through on the ground, Barcelona, to find the left side. So they'd have to loft those balls over, which would then give Inter time to adjust. As it turns out, Pedri can switch the ball just fine and keyed that entire second goal sequence for Barcelona. But what gets them back on the board in this game in the first place? It's Lamine Yamal pulling out just an absurd goal. It looks like Inter forget about him. They don't. He just shoots the ball before anybody's ready for him to shoot the ball after he's already danced past their midfield line. The way that Yamal architected so much of the attacking play for Barcelona, honestly, I'm still kind of shaken by it, and truly the only word I can use to describe it is Messi-esque.
I'm shaken by architected being the verb, but I think you are correct. I feel like that is what you would have to go with. So nicely done by you, Joe. And nicely done by Lamine Yamal as well, for many different reasons, but that goal especially. I can't explain it other than an intentionality to his decision-making in that dribble. That as soon as there is sort of the chaotic moment where there's like a collision and he kind of comes away with the ball, and I think there is a half-yard opening that he spots, and immediately you just know, I'm taking everybody on, I'm driving into it, I'm doing this all on my own, and he does exactly that. And to your point, Joe, like, it's not like they forget about him. It's not like they switch off. It's not like it's even horrific defending. It's just he is able to exploit space so quickly and then shift his body weight, take another little tiny touch that he shouldn't be able to take, but like finish in a way that nobody sees coming. There's just so many aspects of his game that do remind me of Messi, where he just has that like, nope, I'm dribbling in and I'm going to shoot and I'm going to score because I know my angles and I know how to dribble and I know how to get around this guy.
It's
and
ridiculous.
There's just a crazy amount of specificity and intention to what he does.
Yeah, and the to compare Messi and Yamal, there's like a simplicity to how they play. I'm not saying what they do is easy, but like to watch them, you get some dribbly wingers and they're throwing in step overs and they're feinting and they're doing all this stuff. And with Yamal and Messi, their genius has just been they run past players, like, and that's what Yamal does. And it makes you think, like, when you watch him, you're like, why doesn't everyone just do that and like shoot from 25 yards out? I presume that's where Andy Brassell's talking about, like, the Steph Curry thing. Yeah, that's what he's talking about with the Steph Curry thing, right? Where he, all of a sudden, everyone watching him play basketball is like, wait, you can just do that? You can just score from outside the 3 yard? What is it? 3-point line?
No, 3 yard line. You got it.
They should try the 3 yard line, though.
I was so close to nailing this. I'm exposing myself here. But you get my point, right? He does things that you're like, why doesn't everyone just do that?
We all had the opportunity to convince Graham that his name is Stephen Curry. I just want that, and we missed it, and that's
Steven.
on our fault. So that we really could be like, it's Stephen Curry.
And his brother Stephen
Curry?
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking about Lamine Yamal in this game, you're talking about the simplicity of what he does, Graham. I was talking with a professional coach the other day for a story, and Messi came up in our conversation. And the way that this individual described Lionel Messi was, it looks like he is doing the simplest stuff, as you said. I think you're entirely right. But the reality is he is the only person on the field who can do what he does. And I think it's a great point you make, Graham. And I raise that to say that point is shared by others about Lionel Messi. And I don't think it's crazy to loop Lamine Yamal, this version of Lamine Yamal, into that conversation. Usually, and I feel like maybe regular listeners will have picked up on this over time. Like, I have so much respect for Lionel Messi as a player, truly. Like, I don't think the greatest of all time conversation is remotely compelling, because I think it is Lionel Messi by a country mile. And I honestly don't understand people who think it is Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, I find that conversation to be so tiresome, because it seems so, I guess, so clear to me that Lionel Messi does just this absurd stuff that no one can match. The fact that we can actually have a like serious conversation about Lamine Yamal and how he compares to what Messi does, I think is all the testament we need to point to how absurdly good the 17-year-old version of Lamine Yamal is. Like, honestly, if you gave me the chance, if we do the fictional GM thing of you can pick one player to start your franchise, who are you going to pick for the, Las Vegas MLS expansion team, or wherever we want to start this team, right? It might be Lamine Yamal, even over someone like Kylian Mbappe, who I think is an incredible player. Lamine Yamal might already be better than he is. It makes me uncomfortable to say, but this guy
entirely
is
possible.
It's the speed.
It's stupid, is what it is.
It's just the speed of Mbappe that is like, I will never forget. I think in the last World Cup where he hits it like 40 yards ahead of him, and we're all like, oh, well, he got there ahead of every defender who was 10 yards away. That is the only thing that makes me be like, it's closer. If you remove the speed or made them the same speed, it's Lamine Yamal for sure. Just because of that control, that ability to take people on, that ability to back himself and make things happen. He is a sight to behold and very fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm slightly concerned for the second leg of this with Ray Hudson on co-coms. He was very excited when Lamine Yamal was doing things in this game. I'm worried it might be detrimental for his health if he has another performance like that in the second half. It was good to have Ray with that much enthusiasm, as he always does.
He caught himself reusing one at one point and then mentioned that he had already said it earlier. So credit to him. He's on it.
Self-awareness.
He had one that was like this is as good as a shark at a dentist or something I didn't quite get, which... I was like,
I don't know, good business like a shark at a dentist.
Feels like
I didn't hear that one.
Feels like maybe AI wrote that one.
Yep, it was good. Anyway, let's take a quick break. We've got plenty more to talk about with this game, and of course, PSG's winner Arsenal. Join us after the break. Total Soccer Show. Welcome back to our Champions League semis review. Graham, the Barcelona ethos. Fairly swashbuckling, interesting defensive shapes, and not scared to push forward.
That is so charitable.
One should not be able to win a tournament playing like that, right? Well. The logic is that you have the defenses win championships. A team like Inter, in fact, who are a bit more balanced, who are able to do that block, and a couple of years ago they got to a final that way, didn't they? Is it right that a Barcelona team that plays this way can go all the way?
think I said this like quite a bit earlier in the season where I had my doubts to answer that question, and it felt like I think I compared it to like a science experiment where I can't really recall a team that has had this. We've seen teams with high defensive lines, and Pep's Barcelona, that was always their kind of like Achilles heel, was if you can get in behind, then you can harm them. But the extent to which Barcelona have taken that, I think, is kind of unprecedented in elite level soccer. And there were moments in this game, and I sent you guys a screenshot of that. Was just one of like, I'm not even convinced that was the worst one. There was another one I spotted when I was doing my rewatch, which was even more gung-ho, where Barcelona are essentially on the halfway line and Inter have their possession base with runners like 5 yards in front of them, or at most like 10 yards in front of them. And I actually thought Inter could have been bolder in trying to get in behind that high line. I know they did it for the first goal after 30 seconds. But there were at least 4 times when, as I say, I had to pause my rewatch to just marvel at how close Barcelona's defensive line was to the ball. And Inzaghi, I noticed he was going nuts. He seemed to be shouting "go." Is that what an Italian Ryan would shout in those? Would they shout "go"? I would have thought there was a more kind of like, I don't know, emphatic Italian word to shout in that moment. But he was waving them forward. Bureaucracy, yeah. He was waving them forward, and a number of times they were turning back. So there were opportunities there for Inter to, I think, expose Barcelona even more. Thankfully, from their part, they did a really good job from set pieces. That was a real advantage for them in this game, and I think it will be for them in the second leg. If they get through this tie, that might be where the difference is found. But that high line for Barcelona, it just makes every single game that they play like a spectacle, and as I say, like some sort of science experiment.
Has there been a more logic-defying team than this Barcelona one? Like, you look at all the financial insanity and the levers being pulled and the way this team is kind of assembled, and then they can't really register a person. Oh, they registered him at the last second. Even Hansi Flick replacing a club legend turned manager, and Flick's stock was down, and it felt like maybe this is just kind of the guy they could get. Goalkeeper out the whole year. They bring in somebody who I don't think has ever passed a ball with his feet. That seems to be okay. The insanely high line, the kind of combination of players they have, some youth players, some injuries, some players they kind of discovered out of nowhere or found out of nowhere. And yet here they are playing this ridiculous brand of soccer that is so fun to watch. They don't make a lot of sense, but at the same time they make a lot of sense on the pitch. So I'm here for it.
I've said it before. Just think of Jesse Pinkman. How do they keep getting away with it?
Right.
Right. That's all I can think of with Barcelona, and they do.
And I do think like Inter were okay in trying to exploit that high line, and they get chances. I think the corner for the Dumfries goal is DeMarco basically receiving a quick throw in after he was trying to exploit the high line, and then he gets played in. It leads to a corner that leads to the goal. I would say even the opener is a kind of like Barcelona trying to press and then being caught out in transition. And there are just a number of different moments in which it felt like they were kind of struggling to hang with Inter, and a lot of that I think was Marcus Thuram coming back into the team. I did not realize how good he is in terms of hold-up play, in that he can, with one touch or like a reverse instep Billy Baldwin pass, play somebody in, but he can also bring the ball down with somebody on his back and hold it up and then combine well with Lautaro Martinez. And so I give Barca even more credit that a player who in moments in this game looked like there was no way to stop him from controlling the ball and retaining possession was exploiting that back line, and yet they still found a way to get a draw in the end, and I think a draw that I did not think they were going to get when they were 2-0 down. We are talking about it as though they've won this tie, which is a little strange given that we are now going back to Inter, where they will certainly make a game of it and probably still try to score some goals themselves. But it is a wild one for how good Inter were, I think, at times in this one.
Yeah, and we've given Barcelona a lot of the shine because I don't think any of us have been shy about how they're the more fun team to watch of these two. They're the team with the more interesting narratives in a lot of ways. Apologies to Inter fans for that. I will say, I mean, Inter played a really good game here. Like of the two teams, there is a clear answer as to which team should be happier about where they sit right now in this tie, and it is Inter Milan. There's no doubt about that. They played an excellent game that Taylor and you did a good job of detailing this, and Graham, you too. They played a game that exploited what Barcelona are bad at, which is they're not good at defending in transition. They're not good at defending the space and behind their back line. I love that you pointed out that quick throw-in that earns the corner kick for Inter that then they go and score from. And on the topic of corner kicks, Inter are the corner kick team in this competition. We talked about it after the quarterfinals of this competition. They are dominant, especially when it comes to outswinging corner kick goals. We had 2 corner kick goals in this game. Barcelona could not stop Inter when it came to their dead ball situations. That's a huge problem. Like, they pressed on every bruise that Barcelona had in this game, and they did it really, really effectively. Defensively, Inter did a pretty darn good job. They were doubling Lamine Yamal from the opening stages of this game. DeMarco and Mkhitaryan would go over and do their best to stop Lamine Yamal. And ultimately, Lamine Yamal has that goal and has some other just insane moments. A lot of those moments don't really quite come off. And Rafinha wasn't consistently dangerous on the other side. And overall, I think you look at this Inter team and what they accomplished in this game, they've got to be pretty happy with where things sit overall. The other thought that I have on Inter, we were talking about that Marcus Thuram goal, and it's a great goal, right? It's that lovely back-heeled finish, that goes in behind. I mean, it's
a finish.
It's a great finish.
Sometimes you see a back-heel goal, and they're just kind of directing it towards the goal.
It's aimed.
It's aimed. If he had played that with a side foot like a conventional finish, he couldn't have placed it in a better place than when he put it with a back heel. It's incredible. It's
a ridiculous goal. The thing that makes this game so awesome, and truly, I think one of the games of the 2020s. I don't even think there's any question about that. I'm smiling and cackling over here while you guys are talking because that's reminding me of great things in this game. Maybe the thing that made this game so great or that explains its greatness so well is that Marcus Thuram goal in the first minute of a Champions League semifinal on the road, unexpected fashion, in the quality of the finish that it is. It is the third best goal of this game by a country mile. It is not even close to being the best goal of this game. I'll remember this one for so long.
So you going Lamine Yamal and then Dumfries?
Yeah. Dumfries goals, yeah. It's the Rafinha goal for sure.
Rafinha isn't a goal. It's not a Rafinha goal. I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter. It's a goal. I didn't say it was scored by Rafinha. I just said it was the Rafinha goal.
Fair enough. And I feel bad for Jan Sommer, by the way, speaking of that goal, because he kept this one from being a Barcelona win. He has some ridiculous saves that I did not think he would either get down to save or put over the bar. Feels harsh that one of these goals is an own goal off his back, but it is what it is.
His best save is the one I loudly shrieked at this moment when Lamine Yamal cuts it back at the byline and sends DeMarco for a hot dog and then smacks it off the underside of the post. And when you see the replay, it's Sommer who gets a touch to that to put it onto the post. But that was just a moment where it felt like Lamine Yamal could do whatever he wanted in that game because I think it comes 2 minutes after he's scored his ridiculous goal. So I loudly shrieked watching that on my own in the living room.
It feels like this was the most noise-inducing game we've had this season because for that first goal, I definitely went oh, I could not believe that he went for that Marcus Thuram, and then he did. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I have to admit, I was doing the same thing. My wife was occasionally interjecting, saying, "What is happening here?" It was very animated as well. I just hope, Graham, you didn't disturb your neighbour trying to fix his lawn while you were shrieking in your front room.
No, I would never dream of doing such a thing. Never dream of it.
Graham, let's look ahead to the second leg. How do we think it's going to play out? I think I tend to agree with Joe that Inter are in a very good position here, indeed, having scored 3 away goals, taking Barca back to San Siro for this one. I presume they might adapt their approach a little bit, maybe a bit more gung ho, maybe.
I don't know. I kind of feel like we might get a rerun of what we got in the first leg, where we saw both teams play to their strengths. And I know Barcelona scored 3 times in this game, but I agree with Joe. Defensively, Inter were decent in this match. Barcelona have one big chance here, but because they have freaks like Lamine Yamal and Rafinha, they can still score 3 goals. But I think we might see a similar match in the second leg. I was a little bit cooler on Inter's performance than maybe Taylor and Joe. Well, that's not to say that they didn't do a lot of good things in the first leg. I just think a lot of people will have come away from that match last night thinking, man, Barcelona are good. I've had group chat messages to that effect because a lot of casual fans maybe won't watch La Liga games, certainly over here in the UK, so that's maybe one of their first exposures to them this season. But the thing that makes me feel good about Inter's chances is they don't need to be the best team in the second leg. Barcelona give you opportunities. You can score goals against them. They've got set-piece deficiency. Inter are really good at set-pieces, as we saw last night. So Inter don't need to produce a 90-minute performance to get through in this tie. They just need to make their strengths work for them.
The only adjustment I could see Inter trying to implement or trying to really drill down on is just maybe closing down that 5 to 10 yards around the penalty box just a little bit faster, because really like, I think we all agree that the Lamine Yamal goal is a worldie, but he does still have space to exploit and dribble into, and then it's kind of diffusion of responsibility. Recine has the time to hit that shot. It's a design set piece. It's a dummy. It's very clever, but he's still wide open 25 yards from goal. And even for the Ferran Torres goal, which is headed back down by Rafinha, and it's an incredible run. He adjusts his run so well to put that ball in. It's a great goal, but it is still that sort of like near switch from about 25 yards out that goes to the back post that's headed back, and there's nobody really applying pressure to that switch. So the only thing I could see is maybe Inter were too inclined to kind of pack people in and then make Barcelona find a way through, not expecting them to kind of shoot and cross the way they did. So maybe if you step out a bit more, you just don't give them that time to create in the way they did.
Yeah, the other thing we should mention is that Jules Koundé comes off in this game with an injury. He is apparently out for 3 weeks, so he will miss the second leg. Also, Lautaro Martinez comes off in this game for Inter, which is as big a blow as losing Jules Koundé is for Barcelona. Losing Martinez for Inter is huge, considering how effective his partnership with Thuram has been. So those two things could be deciding factors for either teams.
Yeah, I like that point, Taylor, about the space in the box as well for Inter, because I think that was why they suffered against Roma at the weekend as well. Matteo Sully's goal was probably the same situation.
Yeah,
so
good call.
Maybe something they will work on. It's delicately poised for next Tuesday at San Siro, this one.
I can't wait. Like, as soon as this game finished, I was like, let's have the second leg now. Like, just roll into it. Like,
you know who feels similarly? A person whose name I only just now noticed in the recording. Lamine Yamal, I think, is probably pretty excited for that one,
one
Joe.
of his best.
Yeah, you're into it?
Yeah, listener, when we use our recording software, it allows you to customize your name, and Joe always has excellent pun ones. It's Lamine Yamal today. Very good. Very good. Well done, Joe. We're proud of you. I am. By the way, Joe, I still can't get the mental image out of my head. You mentioned like you were Googling the Messi stats and laughing out loud in your house. I'm just picturing your partner like in another room saying, "Everything okay?" And you're like, "Yeah, just Messi's 50-goal season. Just looking at that."
She would just be like, gotcha.
Yeah, I'll be in
back
another
to it
room.
then.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk all about PSG's win at Arsenal. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our Champions League semi-final first leg roundup. We go to London now for PSG's 1-0 win over Arsenal. Ousmane Dembele scoring after 4 minutes in this one from a Kvaratskhelia delivery. Seemed that Arsenal couldn't recover from that start ultimately. PSG could have arguably opened up a wider margin in this one. They dominated large periods. Gigi Donnarumma had a very good game here, although Mikel Merino had a goal chalked off and some set piece chances for Arsenal as well. This one, Taylor, a very different game to the one when they met in the phasening phase of the Champions League in October, which Arsenal won 2-0 pretty comfortably. This one, a very different affair in terms of PSG's output at the very least.
Yeah, a bit. And a very interesting game, I think, is how I'm going to phrase that one, because I said this in the pre-show. One of the commentators felt that they needed to explain the offside rule for new viewers because this was on CBS. And that is probably accurate. But that did make me start then watching this game as though I were new to the sport. And I would have thought that this was a very sloppy game with neither team able to pass all that well. But I think a lot of that is because it was played at such a high tempo. If you looked at this in a vacuum, you would think they're both really sloppy. If you watch this and then watch pretty much any other game, I feel like you would realize, oh, these guys are playing so fast and trying to do so much so quickly that then to watch Ousmane Dembele control a ball that is drilled at his feet while he is sprinting back towards the pass and he just kills it perfectly and then turns kind of shows the high degree of technical ability that both of these teams had. But PSG, I think on the evening, just had that little bit more. And that first goal is such a fascinating representation of what PSG can be because it is at least 27 passes before the goal. I can't say for sure because there's the foul and then they restart. And while they do the restart, they're showing replays. So there's at least a couple passes in there that I couldn't count. But it's basically within that controlled sequence, it's really only 3 moves that matter. It's the Nuno Mendes ball into Ousmane Dembele that kind of bypasses what Arsenal were trying to do. Dembele turns and then plays Kvaratskhelia wide. Kvaratskhelia then attacks into the box, and this is the other critical moment. It's Declan Rice then who is marking Dembele, goes over to double team thinking that Kvaratskhelia is going to try to do something. He is Kvardana after all. And instead, he finds Ousmane Dembele who's now wide open at the top of the box. And so it's a very controlled possession sequence, but it's not as though that possession led PSG into more and more dangerous positions in a controlled way, and then they were able to get a shooting opportunity. It's basically a lot of passes around midfield, like into Arsenal territory and then back into PSG territory. But then rapid fire in the span of 10 seconds, they go from one end of the pitch to the other and the ball's in the back of the net. It shows you how controlled PSG can be, but then also how ruthless they can be in their attack.
Yeah, and Ryan, you led in with PSG kind of dominating stretches of this game. To my eye, the stretches that they dominated were the first 20, 25 minutes or so of this game. And then I think the tides shifted back, at least to sort of this middle ground, no man's land. And even Arsenal, I think, ran parts of this game. And some of that's game state defined, right? Trailing a goal at home, feeling a need to go out there and push more than PSG did. PSG were much more measured in how they approached the latter stages of this game than Barcelona were, say, after that was tied 3-3. For some of the same, home versus away game state reasons, maybe that I mentioned already. That the goal is dazzling from PSG. Truly, the way that they go and play through pressure, they draw Arsenal's midfield out so effectively to then have Ousmane Dembele drop in. So in this game for Arsenal, no Thomas Partey. It's Mikel Merino and Declan Rice playing as a double pivot in Mikel Arteta's 4-4-2 shape, and it's Odegaard and Trossard playing up top as the front two in their defensive structure. And on the goal sequence, and this has relevance for later in the game, on the goal sequence, it is Mikel Merino and Declan Rice who step towards Vitinha and Fabian Ruiz, who are playing deeper down in midfield for PSG in their build-up. So those two Merino and Rice go with Vitinha and Ruiz. They pull them out of position, PSG, and then Dembele just drops right into the space. And William Saliba doesn't go with him. Nobody goes with him because PSG's João Neves and their other attackers are pinning Arsenal's backline deep, and it is Saliba who essentially is the free man to go and step. He doesn't see it. Ousmane Dembele gets on the ball. PSG go and attack. It's a delightful bit of build-up, truly. I mean, in the final third, they're a bit fortunate, right? I think that's a 0.09 XG shot from Ousmane Dembele, which feels about right. It's a really good finish from him that you don't necessarily expect to go in. And so I'm hesitant always to have, games defined by moments like that, or to credit PSG's attack, I should say, for creating this amazing chance when it really, wasn't such an amazing chance. What it was, though, was PSG showing their teeth early in this game with at least how they accessed the final third against a team like Arsenal that does like to press and that prides itself on its defensive cohesion. Arsenal had a ton of trouble early in this game, pinning PSG back and like forcing turnovers high up the field. PSG were carving through them like a knife through butter, really, in the early stages. And Mikel Arteta, to his credit, made some changes to stop some of that bleeding. I think that's what helps turn the tide. About 20 minutes in, Mikel Arteta adjusts the high press for Arsenal. So they were in that 4-4-2 that I mentioned. Then they shift into more of a 4-2-3-1, with Martin Odegaard dropping deeper to block access to someone like Vitinha. So all of a sudden, Mikel Merino and Declan Rice don't both have to go and jump to those players. Instead, one of them can stay deeper and help cover Ousmane Dembele. Also, we saw William Saliba be a bit more alive to those moments. There's one, I think, in the 22nd minute where it's like almost the exact same sequence, except this time Saliba is going with Dembele and PSG don't go anywhere. So credit to Arsenal for some of the changes they made in this game. As it turns out, PSG are just so good so quickly that if you don't have it from the opening whistle, you're in a situation where you're trailing going back to Paris, and that's not where anybody wants to be.
Yeah, there was a shift in midway through the first half, certainly. PSG were absolutely dominant in those first 25 minutes. I looked at some of the numbers. So from the start of the match until minute 23, Arsenal won 26% of their duels. And then from minute 23 until halftime, they won 52%. So that's quite a big swing. They were doing a much better job of disrupting PSG in the middle. I felt like Saka was getting more involved as well. They got him into a couple one-on-one situations. There was that free kick situation which enraged Saka and a lot of the Emirates Stadium, or the home fans inside the Emirates Stadium. The other thing that I thought was a factor was, and look, maybe this is just the way PSG are because they're so interchangeable and they like to have Kvaradona moving over to the right and the left and through the middle, and Dembele shifts around. But I thought Kvaratskhelia was absolutely destroying Jurrien Timber in those first 20 to 25 minutes. And then he shifted over to the right side. And at that point, Arsenal started to get more of a foothold in the game, and they did start to have more of a clear route into Saka. So I don't know, that fluidity is such a positive for PSG to have. But maybe in this instance where you've got one player up against another just having the better of them time and time again, maybe just stick with that until you score a second goal. But Arsenal recovered in some sense. And they're still in this tie. This tie is certainly not over. But it wasn't the greatest performance from them in terms of their open play creativity. I never felt like, I know Donnarumma makes a couple saves, particularly the one from Trossard, which is an absolutely outstanding save. But I don't know, I just don't have a huge amount of faith in Arsenal at the moment to create in those open play sequences.
Yep, totally agree. There's that one, and then there's the one on Martinelli at the very end of the first half, I believe, where I assumed Martinelli was going to be offside, but I don't think he would have been flagged for it in the end. But those are two massive saves from Donnarumma, a goalkeeper that I'm always sort of like, I think he's very good, but also maybe he's not. I'm very confused by him, but I thought he was excellent on the night. And I think Graham Martinelli maybe justified your feelings that Arsenal might need another attacker at some point this summer. Because I did not think it was his sharpest game. I did think PSG had a pretty good game. I'm wondering if anybody here has thoughts on the official. We usually don't talk about the refs, but he seemed to be a much more central point of this one as it went on. I think in the second half, he tries to police by calling pretty much everything, which I felt like really disrupted the flow. But like little moments, like Graham, what you're talking about with Kavicha sort of dominating Uri and Timber, there was like 4 or 5 fouls like in the opening 15 to 20 minutes. And usually I feel like the accumulation would justify a yellow card at that point, and it doesn't come. And I think that kind of sets the tone of he's going to let you play a little bit, but then also he didn't let them play a little bit.
Yeah,
and then also he threw out kind of arbitrary yellow cards. It felt, inconsistent is I guess the word.
Yeah, second half from the referee was better. First half was dreadfully inconsistent. So I can see why Arsenal fans were frustrated. But he didn't make any decision. There was no game-changing decision right here where he didn't give like a penalty or the one game-changing decision that was made was the Merino offside, and it was offside. It's a semi-automated decision there. So I am confused with Arsenal on those set pieces, by the way, where they will crowd everyone offside and then come back. And I understand the logic of that, but it means you've got so much work to do for everyone to then get back on side when the opposition's keeping a high line. And so I don't know whether the end sort of justifies the means of that ploy.
Honestly, it feels, as strange as it is to say, a little outdated. It feels like a thing that worked when teams wouldn't keep the line as like staunchly, and so you could always count on, like, I remember Luis Suarez doing this all the time, of standing 5 yards offside on a free kick and not really moving and trusting that as the free kick is taken, the line is going to collapse, and either by the time it's taken or by the time it's deflects to me, I will be onside. And it feels like teams are doing a better job of holding that line and sort of backing themselves or backing the official or the semi-automated offsides to get it right, and they do. So that's the only thing I can say, because otherwise, I really like that tactic, and I think it's really interesting to create instability and uncertainty, and I guess I then give more credit to PSG that they didn't bite for it. And they did a good job on their own of finding ways to aggravate Arsenal. I feel like this is a good example of PSG being able to do the dark arts in a way that I'm not used to. There were the delay tactics. They sold fouls and infractions really well. If you add up the distance between where the ball like cumulatively went out of bounds and where PSG took the throw in, to use the phrase for the third time, it would be a country mile, because they are very good at walking that ball forwards 10 to 15 yards and then taking a throw, much to the chagrin of everybody watching.
Yeah, kilometre, European measures. Just going back to the disallowed goal, I very much enjoyed Mikel Arteta. So Nicholas Jovar, who is the set-piece coach, was furious in that moment with the official, and he's like holding him back. He's like, "No, we can't lose you. We can't lose you. Like, we don't get banned."
Graham, I thought there was another one where Arteta is getting a talking to from the fourth official, who is saying, like, you have to stay in your area, and he is walking him back. And as he does, that same coach walks past the fourth official and 5 yards out of the box to continue screaming. And it's just like, oh, just cut one head off, another one reappears. Speaking of Arteta going nuts on the sideline, as I said, I tried to watch aspects of this game as though I had not watched these teams before. Here are my fresh eyes observations, starting with, why do they wait so long for the flag to go up? If you are new to soccer, that is a conundrum as to why they wait 30 seconds and a goal to be scored before they say, oh, no, it was offside. That is really weird. Who is this little guy jumping all over the place on the sideline? That would be Mikel Arteta. Who is this other little fella who's always incredulous? That would be Luis Enrique. Who is always incredulous? That's his best face. What's the deal with PSG's goalkeeper? Is he actually a professional athlete? Was my final fresh eyes observation, because Gigi Donnarumma is many things. A comprehensively stellar athlete. I don't know if that's one of them.
He looks like he owns a Brooklyn pizzeria, is what you're saying.
I think I think there's an aesthetic. He's a big lad, obviously, but I think there's an aesthetic element to this. I think if he shaved the head, if you went Pepe Reina, you'll feel differently. Discuss.
Yeah, there comes a time when maybe. That's a look. Yeah. But I think it's also, I feel like, this is so mean. I feel like the mouth is open a lot with Gigi Donnarumma. And so when they cut to him, there's a lot of like, It's just never a good look. It's never a good look. I have thought many times about how, if I were a coach on the sideline and a camera were on me the whole game, there's going to be some unflattering moments for sure. So I feel bad for some of the footballers when they get a bad edit. To
come back to Arsenal's set pieces, there was a classic episode of The Simpsons where Bart became famous for a catchphrase, the "I didn't do it, boy," right? And I got that vibe every time towards the end of this game when Declan Rice was lining up for a free kick. It's like, do the thing you did. And there was like an angle for one of his free kicks where it was like the Tony Kroos versus Sweden angle, almost, and he still went for it at like near post. And I was thinking, that's not what you know.
I mean, to his credit, the disallowed goal is an insanely perfect ball that he plays in. That is well headed by Marino. It is offside.
Not shot though.
It's not. But I feel like I was really paying attention to that moment because there were 3 and 4 players around the free kick as it was set to be taken, and he wasn't one of them. And then he just kind of appears and everybody else wanders away, and it's like, okay, here it is, and you can hear the crowd get behind it, and everybody assumed it was going to be a shot, myself included, and then it's just that perfect like backspin ball to the back post. It wasn't meant to be for Arsenal, but it was a good ball all the same, although not a shot. You are correct.
Yeah. My other main observation of this game, did you guys see the tifo that Arsenal put up?
Yeah.
No.
Was that a last minute job or something?
It was very Tifo basically. It was unimpressive, to say the least. It was like a clip art of the cannon, and they hoisted it up. It felt like they rushed their homework the night before on that one.
That's much. Today? Oh,
yeah. That's what happens when Chris Richards doesn't donate to the Tifo display as he did for the Palace one. Yeah.
There you go. Well, Palace notorious for good Tifo, right? But Arsenal, not so much.
Yeah, Wayne Rooney after the game was brutal about the Arsenal fans. I don't know whether that's just purely because he has a bit of an axe to grind, but he
it was quiet, right?
He went in hard on like the lack of atmosphere at the game. And I never know how much of that stuff matters, but yeah, maybe it was a bit quieter than you would expect.
Are you allowed to have like non-ex-Man United players on punditry or doing TV stuff over there? What is happening? It was Darren Fletcher and Rio Ferdinand, and then Wayne Rooney in the post game.
Different Dan Fletcher, but your point still stands that
cool.
there's basically everyone on British TV played for Man United at some point. Yeah, all of Pep's disciples.
No, that Darren Fletcher did too. 2 games.
All of Pep's disciples and Wenger's disciples are like, shall we become excellent coaches? And Fergie's are like, shall we start another podcast? Which, can relate to.
It's good energy. All right, Joe, last thing on this game. Let's look ahead to the next leg. How do you expect it to play out? Obviously, PSG have the advantage, but this one is far from over.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that there isn't a bit more love for Arsenal and what they did in this game. I think I'm certainly higher on their performance than everybody else. I thought they were the better team for the last 60-plus minutes of this match, and I think they've got a real shot to advance. Obviously, as you said, they're behind the 8 ball in a very literal sense. They're in a tough spot. There's no doubt about that. But I think some of the chances that they had in this game, the fluidity that they showed after Mikel Merino started dropping to help them and build up to play through PSG's press, I was just encouraged by the adjustments that they made and how effective they looked after those adjustments. It's not like they were creating golden chance after golden chance, but they did a pretty good job of shutting up PSG for long stretches of this game. And they did have some really nice looks. I mean, I kind of think we minimized some of the chances that they had. Credit to Donnarumma for a couple of the saves that he makes in this game, as we've already said. Mouth open or closed, the guy gets the job done in this game, no doubt about it. But I think Arsenal have a real chance. I don't think the game's going to look wildly different than this one, other than, Arsenal had to climb back and have a bit more of the ball in the second half. Depending on how the first half goes, that might look a little bit different. But Arsenal are going to be detailed in their press. They're going to try to disrupt a chunk of PSG's build, I would imagine. And in possession, they're going to try to work the ball through the Pirate himself in central midfield, who I thought had another good game in this match.
He was great.
The dude's insane. Like, the dude is so incredibly good. Left back who would shift all the way over to like a right-sided center mid role at times in build-up. He's amazing to watch, and I love him so much. Arsenal are going to try to build through PSG's pressure, and I think that's a way they can get at PSG. We talk about Barcelona's defensive frailties, which are abundant. PSG have some defensive deficiencies of their own. I didn't think they were totally airtight when they were back in a new sort of a mid-block or when they were in their press. So there'll be opportunities for Arsenal, no doubt, in the second leg. I don't expect them to advance, but I thought they were within a hair's breadth of equalizing in this game and have a chance to do something at the very least in the second leg.
They're certainly still in this tie, and it wouldn't be overly surprising if they were able to turn it around. I just think in this game, this first leg, PSG equally weren't at their attacking best, and so there's another level for them to get to. Just when you're talking about like the chances, Joe, I'm just trying to remember, like, I'm trying to tot it up, I'm trying to tally it up. So Arsenal had like a couple. There was a Trossard one, the Martinelli one, and then the disallowed own goal. Am I forgetting any other chances? Because I'm thinking like PSG had the Barca one right at the end. Gonzalo Ramos hits the post. Obviously, they score. Like I still feel like they had the better chances in this game. And I just look at someone like Ousmane Dembele, who's. I mean, I just find it amazing that he just one day decided to become the best player in the world after years of messing around. He's like the soccer Matthew McConaughey or something. And I just think he is going to. He's going to have more in the second leg, I think.
I mean, two things there. I think to Joe's point about maybe not giving Arsenal enough credit, Dembele, I thought in the first half, I was like, this is it, man. This is the Dembele we've always kind of thought could be there, and he has finally reached full form. And I have zero notes in the second half aside from when he is subbed off, because I felt like Arsenal made some adjustments to nullify him, or at the very least kind of counteract what he was doing. And so in that way, I think it's a credit to Arsenal that they made smart adjustments. I think you could say... there are the two different, very incredible tackles by João Neves in the box. The first one on Marino that like was about to be a very clear shooting opportunity. I would say when Saka gets the yellow card for the very gentle shove in the back, if that isn't given as a foul, he is in on goal with kind of no one around him. So I think those aren't like strong chances necessarily, but they are moments in which I thought, oh, this is Arsenal scoring a goal, and then it doesn't go that way. So I think there are opportunities in there. There are moments that if they're a little bit sharper and if PSG are maybe a little bit less sharp, it could go a different way. I still give PSG the edge going back home. I feel like they will be confident and have more swagger about them than Arsenal desperately trying to make something happen. But it could still go either way. I think it's the tie that I'm most excited for when we get the return leg.
There we go. Yeah, I think, Taylor, this PSG still, for me, are the favourites to win this. I just feel because they have the fewest weaknesses. Obviously, great midfield, great fullbacks. Kvaradona, sensation. Dembele in his.
Hakimi even defended. Hakimi was even a fullback at points in this game. I don't think I've ever seen that before. He was actually a right fullback. It was shocking.
But yeah, I know this is part of the narrative of we like PSG now, becoming likeable. But, great press. They're quick. They're technical. I feel like they've just got the. I know, Joe, you mentioned sort of the. They're not airtight at the back necessarily, but I feel of the four remaining teams, they're probably have the least flaws, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think you're right about that. I would agree that they're the most well-rounded team left. Still, with how good Arsenal are, even not quite at their full strength in this game, the margin is not so great, and I think we all would agree with this. The margin is not so great that there isn't a potential for something wild to happen in the second leg.
My heart wants to say Inter's defense might be better, but they conceded 3 goals.
I think Arsenal's defense on balance is. I would trust Arsenal defensively more than I would trust PSG defensively. But if we're talking about the fewest weaknesses, I do think PSG still, even with them maybe not being the absolute best defensive team left of this four, PSG still just don't have a lot of glaring, they are going to get exposed in this way sort of weaknesses.
There are details and nuances to PSG that I don't think are matched by any other team. Like you guys outlined the goal, the only goal, the winning goal from this game. But a key part of that is like Fabian Ruiz making that run round to pull Rice away from the middle of the pitch. And that is a repeatable thing. That's a design thing that PSG have done, where someone on social media, I think it was on Blue Sky, pointed out that the goal Dembele scored against Liverpool away at Anfield, it's Neves making that run, but it's almost an identical move. And so just kind of feels like they're playing 4D chess, where they've got Dembele as McConaughey in the number 9 role, and they've got players making runs, pinning back defenders, so he's got more space. So it just feels like everything, as long as everyone is fit, everything is kind of ticking along very nicely for them.
It is indeed. Everything delicately poised for when the Champions League semis resume next week. That's it for this episode. For now, Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed for your analysis as always, my good man.
My pleasure, and thank you, Ryan. And to complete the This Game Had It All bingo card, we even got a toe poke smash from Gonzalo Ramos. And that's what you need to have a completely awesome game. At least one shot on frame that is a toe poke. So let's get that in return leg.
I don't want to open a can of worms here, but did Dembele hit that goal as cleanly as he could have? Was it just was it a shin? I'm gonna have to watch.
He could have hit it cleaner. Yep, that's possible.
Why have I introduced this theory as we're about to go out? I don't know. Graham Ruthven, thank you very much indeed.
Shaking my head.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
Joe Lowry, it's a pleasure as always, sir.
Thanks, Ryan.
And listener, thank you very much for joining us on this episode. We'll be back on the feed very shortly. But for now, bye.